What if I told you that everything you see, hear, and experience might simply be a creation of your own mind? That every person you've ever met, your family, friends, and even strangers, might not actually possess consciousness like you do? Welcome to MetaMind, where today we're diving deep into one of philosophy's most unsettling theories, solipsism. The idea that your mind is the only thing that truly exists. In the next few minutes, we'll explore a philosophical rabbit hole that has fascinated and disturbed thinkers for centuries. Whether you're a philosophy student, a curious mind, or someone who has laid awake at night wondering about the nature of reality, this journey is for you. So let's begin with a simple but profound question. How do you know that anything exists outside your own consciousness? At its core, solipsism is the philosophical position that only one's own mind is certain to exist. The term comes from the Latin solus, meaning alone, and it meaning self. Essentially, only the self exists. But solipsism isn't a single unified theory. Let's break it down into its primary forms. Metaphysical solipsism is the most radical form, asserting that nothing exists outside your mind. The external world, other people, even your body, all are just mental constructs. Less extreme but equally profound is epistemological solipsism. It argues that while things might exist outside your mind, you can never truly know about them. Your knowledge is forever limited to your own mental states. Methodological solipsism doesn't necessarily claim that only your mind exists, but suggests that in understanding consciousness, we must begin with the individual experience as the only thing we can directly access. What makes solipsism so fascinating is that it's virtually impossible to disprove logically. After all, everything you experience, including all evidence for the existence of others, is processed through your consciousness. How can you verify anything beyond your own mind? While solipsism might seem like a modern philosophical curiosity, its roots extend deep into history. In ancient Greece, the sophist Gorgias argued three radical propositions. Nothing exists. If something exists, it cannot be known. And if it can be known, it cannot be communicated. While not explicitly solipsistic, these ideas laid groundwork for later solipsistic thinking. Fast forward to the 17th century, when René Descartes embarked on his famous method of doubt. Descartes questioned everything that could possibly be doubted: the existence of the external world, his body, even mathematical truths. But he discovered one thing he couldn't doubt: his own thinking. Descartes wasn't a solipsist himself. He used this foundation to build back up to prove God's existence and then the external world. But his method inadvertently provided powerful ammunition for solipsistic arguments. George Berkeley, an 18th century Irish philosopher, took things a step further with his idealist stance. To be is to be perceived. For Berkeley, objects only exist as perceptions in minds. Unlike solipsists, however, Berkeley believed these perceptions existed in God's mind when no human was perceiving them. In more recent philosophy, solipsism has often been used as a problem to overcome rather than a position to defend. From Ludwig Wittgenstein's analysis of private language to contemporary discussions of consciousness, solipsism remains a persistent philosophical challenge. Let's examine why solipsism has persisted as a philosophical position despite its counterintuitive nature. The most straightforward case for solipsism stems from the private nature of consciousness. You can directly experience only your own thoughts, sensations, and perceptions, never those of another being. When you look at another person, you can observe their behavior, their facial expressions, their words, but you cannot experience their consciousness directly. You infer their inner life based on external signs, but this inference always requires a leap of faith. Consider your dreams. In a vivid dream, you experience a world populated by seemingly conscious beings. People who talk, respond, and appear to have minds of their own. Yet upon waking, you realize these minds were simply constructs of your own consciousness. If your mind can create the illusion of other conscious beings in dreams, how can you be certain it isn't doing the same in your waking life? Imagine your brain removed from your body, placed in a vat of life-sustaining fluid, and connected to a supercomputer that feeds it electrical signals identical to those it would receive through normal sensory interaction with the world. In this scenario, you would experience a reality indistinguishable from actual reality, complete with the apparent existence of other people. Yet, those people would be mere simulations. The solipsist argues that you cannot prove this is not your current situation. Finally, there's the fundamental philosophical issue known as the problem of other minds. Since consciousness is inherently subjective, how can you verify consciousness in others? You might observe behavior consistent with consciousness, but behavior alone doesn't prove the existence of subjective experience. This is where the concept of philosophical zombies becomes relevant. Beings physically identical to humans who lack conscious experience. Could everyone around you be such a zombie? The solipsist would argue that you cannot definitively rule out this possibility. Despite its logical consistency, solipsism faces powerful counter-arguments. Let's examine the most compelling reasons to reject the solipsistic worldview. Occam's razor suggests that the simplest explanation requiring the fewest assumptions is usually correct. Consider two competing hypotheses. 1. Reality exists as we perceive it, with multiple conscious beings. 2. Only your mind exists, creating an elaborate illusion of a world with billions of apparently conscious beings. The solipsistic position requires a mind of godlike creative power to maintain the consistent illusion of billions of other minds, and a universe operating according to consistent laws. The simpler explanation is that the world simply exists as it appears to. There's something inherently contradictory about arguing for solipsism. If a solipsist truly believed they were the only mind that exists, who are they trying to convince by articulating their position? The very act of communicating philosophical ideas presupposes the existence of other minds capable of understanding. As Ludwig Wittgenstein observed, the idea of a truly private language, one only comprehensible to a single mind, is incoherent. Language is inherently social. Consider how often you're surprised by the actions, words, and creations of others. Books contain ideas you never thought of. People respond in ways you didn't anticipate. And scientific discoveries reveal aspects of reality you couldn't have predicted. If everything were a creation of your mind, why would you constantly surprise yourself? These experiences suggest the existence of minds independent of your own. Finally, consider how much you've learned from others. If solipsism were true, this would mean you're somehow teaching yourself things you didn't already know. A logical impossibility. From childhood education to university studies to everyday conversations, we constantly assimilate new knowledge from sources outside ourselves. This strongly suggests the existence of other minds with knowledge different from our own. Has fascinated not only philosophers, but artists, writers, and filmmakers. Let's explore how this mind-bending concept has appeared in popular culture. Perhaps no film has brought solipsistic themes to mainstream audiences more effectively than The Matrix. The movie's premise, that what we perceive as reality is actually a computer simulation, while our bodies exist elsewhere, functions as a technological version of solipsism. When Morpheus asks Neo, "What is real? How do you define real?" If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain. He's raising the core question that haunts solipsistic thinking. Christopher Nolan's Inception explores the blurring of dreams and reality, touching on solipsistic themes through its layered dreamscapes. The spinning top at the film's conclusion leaves viewers questioning which reality, if any, is real. Episodes like Playtest and San Junipero explore technological scenarios where consciousness exists in simulated realities, raising questions about the nature of reality and the self that resonate with solipsistic concerns. From Jorge Luis Borges' labyrinthine stories to Philip K. Dick's reality-bending novels like The Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch, literature has long explored the unsettling possibility that reality is not what it seems. These popular explorations of solipsism reveal our collective fascination with questions of reality and consciousness. They tap into something fundamental about the human experience, the mystery of being a mind perceiving a world that we can never step outside of. Whether or not you find solipsism philosophically convincing, engaging with its questions can profoundly affect how you approach life and consciousness. Let's consider some implications and responses to the solipsistic challenge. Most philosophers, even those who acknowledge the logical difficulty of disproving solipsism, adopt what we might call a practical rejection of the position. We live as if other minds exist because it's the only sensible way to live. As Bertrand Russell put it, there is no logical impossibility in the hypothesis that the world sprang into being 5 minutes ago, exactly as it then was. There is no logical impossibility in the hypothesis that the world consists of myself and my thoughts and feelings and sensations, and that everything else is mere fancy. But Russell didn't believe this was actually the case. The radical doubt of solipsism, while logically consistent, simply doesn't provide a workable framework for living. Another approach is to extend the one certainty we have, our own consciousness, to others through empathy and recognition. When you see another person expressing joy, pain, curiosity, or love, you recognize patterns that mirror your own conscious experience. This recognition isn't proof in the strict philosophical sense, but it creates a bridge across the gap of absolute certainty. Perhaps the most important response to solipsism is ethical. Even if we cannot prove beyond all doubt that others possess consciousness like our own, acting as if they do leads to a more compassionate, just, and meaningful existence. The philosopher Emmanuel Levinas argued that the face-to-face encounter with another person presents us with an ethical demand that precedes all philosophical questioning. The very doubt about other minds creates a responsibility toward them. Finally, there's something profound about the fact that despite the inherent privacy of consciousness, we manage to create art, language, and culture that resonates across individual minds. There's beauty in the bridges we build across the solipsistic gap. Whether or not solipsism is true in some absolute sense, the wonder of human connection suggests something powerful about the nature of consciousness itself. Before we conclude, let's engage with a few thought experiments that bring solipsism into sharper focus. Imagine someone who experiences colors in exactly the opposite way you do. What you see as red, they experience as blue. and vice versa, if their color vocabulary matches yours perfectly. They call blood red and the sky blue. How would you ever know their subjective experience differs from yours? This thought experiment highlights the inherent privacy of qualia or subjective experiences, a key foundation of solipsistic thinking. Philosopher Robert Nozick proposed the experience machine, a device that could give you any experience you desire. Would you choose to plug in permanently to a simulated reality of perfect happiness over actual reality? Your intuitive response might reveal something about how you value reality versus experience, a central tension in solipsistic thinking. Imagine you are the last conscious human on Earth, surrounded by sophisticated robots, programmed to behave exactly like humans. Would this scenario be meaningfully different from our current reality if solipsism is true? This thought experiment helps clarify what's at stake in the question of other minds. As we reach the end of our exploration of solipsism, it's worth reflecting on why this philosophical position continues to captivate and disturb us. Perhaps it's because solipsism touches on the fundamental mystery at the heart of consciousness. The fact that each of us experiences reality from a perspective that no one else can fully access or verify. The soul looks in the mirror and sees only themselves, while the rest of us look and see reflections of a shared world. We may never resolve the logical conundrum of solipsism to everyone's satisfaction, but in grappling with its challenge, we deepen our understanding of mind, reality, and what it means to be conscious beings in a world of others. Whether there is one mind in existence or billions, the question itself has expanded your thinking. And in philosophy, sometimes the questions matter more than the answers. If you've enjoyed this dive into solipsism, consider subscribing to MetaMind for more philosophical explorations. Leave your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about solipsism? Are there other philosophical puzzles you'd like me to explore? Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of philosophy's most enduring mysteries. Until next time, keep questioning reality. It might be the only thing you can be certain of.